You're listening to Combat Radio with Ethan Dettenmeyer, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Real quick, we just survived Combat Radio's appearance down at Comic-Con, and of course, I do have to say, we all have nightmare convention circuits. You two in particular, Palmer and Ross, have done a lot of conventions. We know good ones from bad ones. Mattel, first class the whole way. I mean, that was just an epic experience working with them, and I hope to do more work with them, especially because they've got some real good philanthropic interests and charity interests. But what made it doable for me, Palmer, you'd laugh at this, was our mutual friends kind of got me through it. Doug Jones was the first guy I saw right out of the gate, and he's like everybody's therapist.
He's the best of the best.
Yeah, and you know what's good is he deals with such a huge fan base that he's the one to talk to about how to deal with it.
He hugs everybody, though, and I would need to bathe in Purell after that.
Well, yes, he definitely loves the, come get some love, as he puts it.
Him and Camden, they just, climb all over everybody.
They hug. I mean, my wife ran into an old friend, Tara Patrick, the adult film star son, at one booth, so she had a chance to talk to her. And, but initially, I was kind of getting at the point where I was kind of tired and getting fatigued because there was so much, hey, can you say a few words at this booth? Can you do something at Storm of Steel and kind of get the crowd fired up from like a Combat Radio perspective? And I was jumping around and I was sitting in the green room like, I'm ready to go, man. We went over to Nobu for lunch with the Mattel guys, and I actually brought my bag thinking I'm out of here afterwards. But somebody said, let's go back in and just do a round. And you know what? There's this weird sort of moment, like a Jedi mind moment, where I always kind of like feel like, well, someone's suggesting that maybe something's supposed to happen, so I'm like, okay, I'll go back in, and so I go back in, and of course that's when like the canister came off the napalm essentially, because initially the first guy I ran into is Adrian Paul, who many people know I host a show with on Wednesdays, and quite frankly I had the funniest conversation I've ever had with him clowning around at Comic-Con. And Richard Hatch, who was Apollo in Battlestar Galactica, was right next to us talking, and it was just one of those things where you start going through the ranks and you come across the people, because everyone has a signing schedule. Mm-hmm. They're not there all day. So it's like whoever's signing in the morning, as you know, Palmer, because you're in demand, they're not signing at noon, they're not signing at 3. So it's like it was like a whole new crowd, and everyone's like, and Adrian's like, what are you doing? How did they get you here? And he's like looking around like for some divine like answer to what are you doing here? He's like, because he's like signing away for fans and he actually goes, you want a picture? You want me to sign something for you? And I'm like, no, I've got enough Adrian Paul in my life, ladies and gentlemen.
He's like, that'll be $35.
I don't need a reminder. But it was kind of hilarious. And then and his table was exactly opposite of another one of our show's classic guests, Claudia Wells of Back to the Future and Fast Times. They were like back to back with the divider between them, signing in one direction, signing in another. And they're both like simultaneously go, what are you doing here? It's like kind of hilarious. So when you see people like that, because we were talking earlier, and you guys can definitely attest to this, there's a different sort of observation level of, I guess, awareness between the participants and the guests. All good, but there's like a certain sort of language that the participants have, like, does anyone understand what I'm saying?
I just totally
I understand. I just got a funny story about Adrian Paul. I got to throw in.
Oh, here you go.
So Adrian and I used to be models in Europe together.
Oh, gee, throw that out there.
Wow.
Well, I was a model, all those years with Gucci.
We were. I was an actor, and at the time he was a dancer. But I thought, what, you got to pay me to work with beautiful women and travel all over Europe together?
And you're the one straight guy. You're the one straight guy. Something interesting about Adrian, though, and I'm not going to derail your story. I want to get back to it in a moment, but I'll forget it. He is the Matador in that Duran Duran video, My Own Way. So I love playing that sometimes for him and surprising him. Like, let's rock out to a little Duran Duran.
Okay, now I need to see this.
And he'll constantly be like, oh, dude, how dare you do that? But that's kind of where he got his start.
When we first met, Adrian was the hottest looking guy you'd ever meet. This guy was so freaking. You can look at a girl and say, oh, wow, she's beautiful. I'm a guy. I was looking at him and I was like, this dude is a good looking guy. He was a great looking guy.
And don't think that hasn't gone to his head and he knows it. I am constantly dealing with. Here,
I would never tell him that though.
No.
But anyway, so we do these shows and we're all over, Munich, Milan, Paris, London.
Here he is. You want to come over and see real quick?
Yes.
And then we finish in Vegas, and I say I'm going to L.A. before I go back to England. So Adrian says to me, I got to see this too, man. While I tell my story.
Yeah. Let's all right, here, let's back it up. I'm gonna back it up for the crowd. Here's Adrian Paul.
Oh, there he is.
He's already texting me. He's already texting me asking. Well, he's texting to undoubtedly confirm that, but also to say take down the Duran Duran clip. I'm sure of it. I am sure of it. But yeah, so you guys are models and you're in Vegas.
So we finished in Vegas, and and I tell him I'm going back to LA. I'm going to LA and hang out for a little bit, and then I'm going to head back over to London. He says, I'll go to LA with you. So we go to LA, and we decide to take a road trip to San Francisco. So we take this road trip to San Francisco, and on the way up to San Francisco, he falls in love with America. By the time we got back, he says, I want to live here.
Yeah. Do they need matadors here?
I said, do it, man, do it. He was going like, I don't have any visas, I don't have any work papers. I said, listen, if you want to stay here bad enough, you'll find a way to stay here. Long story short, a few years later, he was the lead on one of these television series, and then shortly after that, he got the lead on the show that blew him up. Highlander. And then now he's doing Highlander, and I don't see him for years. And I'm doing my modeling, my acting stuff, and we're all working. And I get this offer to play one of the leads in Highlander, one of the episodes. And I'm like, the main adversary. And I'm thinking, oh, my man Adrian has hooked me up. I show up in Paris to shoot the film. He's as surprised as I am that I'm on the film.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, what? You didn't hook me up, man? He goes, no, I didn't know anything about it, man.
You should have taken credit for that. You owe him forever.
Yeah, first big management error there. You want to take credit for that. But the thing, it shows the disconnect that the cast has in the casting process. They never know who's walking through the door. Some of the times they can be like, what? Roger Daltrey?
Yeah, exactly.
You're not on tour with The Who. You're doing an episode. Well, nice to meet you. Okay, here's the scene. But people don't know about you is that you got cast in Aliens for James Cameron, and you had to decide between that role and playing Snowball for Kubrick in Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah.
Because you were in England at the same time.
That's right, and I'll tell you, that was a hard decision, man. That was a very hard decision because every actor wanted to work with Kubrick at the time, and James Cameron had only done a couple movies at that point,
Right.
So, I get an offer from Kubrick, and then of course, after I tell Cameron I got an offer from Kubrick, he makes the offer right away. But he says, listen, I wrote the script. I'll give you a nice part. I'll put these three characters together, and I'll pay you. And Kubrick was like, I can't even show you the movie. He couldn't even show me the script. He wouldn't show anybody the script.
Right.
And I think partly because it probably wasn't really completed, the way he works. And I had to make that decision. And it only overlapped for a week. And Cameron says, I'll let you come back a week late. You can come a week after we start. And Kubrick was like, no, I can't release you because I don't know if I'll be finished with you at that point.
Well, that was Kubrick's style. He likes to keep all the paints in the paint drawer for when he may need them.
And it ended up taking him like a year to finish that movie. We were working on that movie at the same time in London. And we on the Aliens crew, we were having an amazing time. The Kubrick crew, oh my God, they were suicidal.
No, yeah, they were suicidal. Kubrick's long-term assistant is Leon Vitali, who's done this show several times, and he actually just gave us for the documentary they're doing on us. He gave us a great tour of the Kubrick archives at LACMA, and walking through it, he was talking about Full Metal Jacket and a lot of the experiences they had to deal with. And one of the reasons that Kubrick was so frustrated was they started to develop Full Metal Jacket long before Platoon, and Platoon was developed, shot, and won the Oscar before Full Metal Jacket came out because Kubrick was so they were taking so long. And Kubrick initially, when he pulled the trigger on it, said we're going to do a Vietnam film. Everyone else was like, whoa, it's the first one since Apocalypse Now. And then Oliver Stone came back, and let's be honest, Oliver Stone, if you want to see a movie that's just brilliantly cast, Platoon is the movie.
Great movie.
Yeah, it's unreal. Even Johnny Depp is the translator, probably his best role, I thought, playing that translator. But anyway, so I think they were kind of furious. He did tell a funny story about when they were shooting. They shot all of, as you know now, everyone knows, they shot it all in London or England, and they used an old gas works for Way City, and they found an old undetonated Luftwaffe German Air Force bomb that had been somehow been dropped and stuck in between the brickwork and the steel framework of a building, and didn't go off, and they found it all those years later on the set, and they were still blowing stuff up. Pyrotechnics was doing all these explosions, and they thought, wow, we are so lucky that thing would have leveled,
Oh my God.
Oh,
by the way.
They just found it. The pyrotechnic guys, when they were laying in like a second track, they said, "Wait a minute, whose is that? Whoa, that's like 40 years old. Holy shit, there's a swastika on." No, I don't. It's like, wow. They
Oh
found
my
that thing.
God.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
So Kubrick, Kubrick being Kubrick,
Penn
but
State work.
But one of the cool stories too, if you're an Aliens fan, here's a little trivia that Ricco shared with us, and I'll let him tell the story. But there was another actor cast as Hicks, James Remar, and he played the part. He was on the job for a while, and some of the footage in the film is actually him and not Michael Biehn.
James Remar had an amazing interpretation of the character that he played, and because I guess he was the first, the cast kind of like you gel and that becomes your cast, and all of a sudden after 2 weeks of shooting, he's being replaced. It was really weird.
Oh.
And
Well, you didn't know the reasons. They weren't disclosed to you, were they? I mean, it's famous now, but
No, we knew the reasons.
oh, you did know the reasons.
I don't know if the studio wanted us to know, but we kind of.
How do you not know that? How do you not know that?
We knew the reason. The press didn't know the reason. We knew the reason. And anyway, so then Michael Biehn ends up taking this part. Michael Biehn ends up getting a call saying, "Listen, I got this part. This is the pay. You got 24 hours to get on the plane. It's your decision." And all of a sudden, he shows up, and he's Hicks now.
Yeah.
And it was very strange. And Michael played it very differently, which for us, when we're used to the way
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just reacted because that was the point you made earlier in one of our discussions where I was like, that is so pivotal that you defined that because Biehn did play it totally different. Remar is like, we're going to thrash these motherfuckers.
But I'm telling you, man, the way Remar played it worked too.
Yeah.
And
Well, I want to see that. I would love to have seen that.
It was a great experience for an actor because Remar came in there with this different kind of energy, and it worked. And then Michael Biehn came in with his energy, and we didn't think it worked at first. But then after we gave him some time and he started working, we saw, oh, okay, this works too, but it's completely different. Mm-hmm. Which is strangely enough, Biehn and I just wrapped on a film, on his film.
What is it?
He's got a new film called Hidden in the Woods, and he was at one of these film festivals, and he saw this amazing movie called Hidden in the Woods. It was Spanish, and he says, "I want to make that movie, and I want to play that part." And so he ends up getting in contact with the director of that movie, who's a Spanish guy, and telling him, "I want to make this movie, and I want you to direct it." And the guy goes, "I'm in." He said, "I want to make it in English, and I want you to direct it." So we had this Spanish guy flown over who doesn't speak a word of English directing us in this movie, in this remake of Hidden in the Woods.
Is it called Hidden in the Woods?
It's called Hidden in the Woods as well, and it's also starring William Forsythe and a whole cast. Is just a great cast he's pulled together to do this movie. And one of the scenes that I did in the movie was the scariest thing I have ever done in 25 years of acting. We've got this guy, Christoph, who's an MMA fighter. And he's the real thing. I mean, this guy is built like a champion. He's built like a freaking German tank. I touched this guy's arm, and it felt like metal. Now, we have this scene where he has to pretty much beat me to death.
Oh, I love those moments. I don't understand.
Oh, man.
Like, oh,
and so there I am on the ground, and he has to act like he's punching me.
And you have to question his stage fighting ability.
Dude, let me tell you, man. The first punch in the stomach, I knew this guy knew what he was doing because it was enough for me to feel it, to react, but it wasn't enough for it to hurt me. But then later on in the movie, he has to hit me in the face multiple times, and my head is against the ground, so I can't go anywhere. I have to just trust. I have to put all my faith in this guy, and this guy is 250 pounds of steel, punching down. And the director is telling him the reason why Michael wanted to make this movie with this director's his stuff is so raw and so real that you don't see anything like it in Hollywood. And so now he's telling this MMA champion guy, I want it to look like he's beat. I want it to look real. This guy is punching me.
Oh,
this guy is punching me, and I would say 50% of the time he's just touching me, just tapping my face. But he's swinging so hard. But what was frightening me was after each tape, people were just like blown away how real it looked. And he would say, I never touched him. I never touched him. And I'm thinking, oh, you touched me, but you just didn't hurt me, but you touched me. But he was just that accurate. Then later on, he told me that he used to do that wrestling stuff where you had to do all these punches and pull punches.
So you were in
he
good
knows
hands ultimately. But
I
that's
was in
always a
good hands,
nervous
but
situation.
that was the scariest
Would have been
thing
nice
I've
of him
ever
to tell you
Can I
ahead
take
of
a look
time.
at your
Yeah, ahead of time.
insurance paperwork before we do this scene, just to make sure if I need new teeth or something? Yeah. There's a 3-hour documentary on aliens going back to what we just talked about, where Bean explains that when he flew into London, he stepped right into that Remar's pay, wardrobe, exactly everything. And I just wanted to ask you real quick. I think you actually have highlighted it in the past here, but did you know he was coming in, or did you just show up on the set one day and there's a new guy?
Well,
And he got out of all the paramilitary training you guys had to do too.
He got out of that, but Bean came in shape though.
Yeah.
He was in shape anyway. He pretty much stays in shape. So he came in shape and it was good. But we didn't know. I didn't know. I don't know if Bill Paxton knew, because Bill Paxton and he were friends before because of Terminator.
Yeah, Terminator.
But I didn't know. And then he showed up on set and started doing his thing, and it was very strange. And it's like if you have a group and then one person is kicked out, your team is kicked out. You feel like you're being a traitor to like the other person. So we didn't give him a chance at first, but the guy proved himself right away.
James Remar, especially then,
He
is
was
a
hot.
brilliant casting choice.
Oh, it was a brilliant.
Because if there's a guy that if you want to pick your friend to follow through a front door in a SWAT raid, that's the guy.
Well, I wonder what would have happened with his career had he completed
I think that too,
film.
just talking to you right now.
I really wonder, because this dude was putting on a performance that was just like amazing, an amazing performance, and it wasn't forced. It was just he brought a certain quality to that character. I just wonder what would have happened with his career had he completed that film.
And Bean does play it like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he's very cool, very
Stay
laid back,
frosty.
Very
There might
laid
be
back.
something out there to
Yeah.
be worried about. Stay frosty. We're all tired. And Bean would have, Remar would be like, I'm going to go out there and blow this building in half.
And what happens is, because that character is kind of like leading the Marines, his energy becomes infectious to everybody.
Right.
Whoever plays that role.
Well, it's funny because he is, now that you define it, he's one of the actors that now it's a no-brainer. You have a lot of tough people in that cast. You, Jeanette Goldstein as Vasquez, actually Mark Ralston, who you brought in one day who played
Right.
Drake. These guys are tough. It's like, who's the actor that's going to be as tough or tougher on screen than all these guys? And it's James Remar.
Who is going to be the leader of the pack?
Right. Who's gonna? Yeah, there is testosterone all over.
Who's going to be the
Palmer
leader
was
of the pack?
unavailable at the time, so we had to actually lean it.
Testosterone, yes. That's what you think of.
So it's one of those things where you're like, wow, who, how,
Yeah.
And what was the actual situation? I mean, it's not, we're not bad mouthing, and what happened, and everyone knows he was replaced on the film, but what exactly was the situation where the studios finally said, you've got to replace him? Like what? I mean,
I can't tell you that, man.
Well, let me tell you what I know, and okay, so there's more to it than maybe we know.
I could tell you off the air. I'm not going to tell you.
I love that. I love that about you. I love that about Ricco right there. Well, shoot, because it's interesting. It's not common. I mean, it's common to trade people out, but in that fashion of like 24 hours more in England, here it is, get here.
Woo!
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Dude, it was crazy. It was crazy, and it was crazy for Michael too. He said he was glad he wasn't under contract with something else, and he had worked with James before, so he knew that the project was going to be a good project. But
Cameron,
24 hours,
not James Remar, but
James Cameron.
Yeah, Terminator.
Yeah.
You're listening to Combat Radio with Ethan Dettenmeyer, right here on LA Talk Radio.